a best moment kind of scenario where it was really hugely impactful to yourself?
Well, are we talking about the Munsters, or are we just talking about in general?
Just in general with your acting, stuff like that.
I was lucky enough to do some very interesting stuff. The Munsters was kind of right in the middle of my career. I was 11 and 12. I started when I was 7. I quit when I was 19. But built around the Munsters, right after that show, I was lucky enough to do the Monkees, for instance. They did their Christmas show, spent a week with the guys, and they were huge at that time. They were like as big as the Beatles were. And the Beatles came to the Munsters set one day, and I wasn't working that day, so I missed out on that. And you would have thought one of the adults would think about me and get me an autographed picture. No. Yes, back to the Monkees. Okay, so I was lucky enough to work with the Monkees, pop culture. This is the PopCon. And then I was also lucky enough to do a movie with Chuck Jones, his only feature film, working with all the voiceover people because it was live and animated. So it showed me as a kid in the beginning. It was called The Phantom Toll Booth, very popular book. A lot of times it's mandatory reading in schools. So I worked 2 years behind the scenes with Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, Hans Conried, June Foray, all the great voiceover artists of the period, which was very neat. Then I went on to do a Saturday morning show called Lidsville, which was a Sid and Marty Krofft production. And Sid and Marty were famous for Puffin' Stuff and the Bugaloos. And then after me, they did Sigmund and Land of the Lost and Space Nuts and all kinds of weird stuff, in addition to some nighttime programming like Donnie and Marie and the Brady Bunch Hour, things of that nature. In between, I don't know, pop culture, we got Chips here, which is funny because Robert Prine played the love interest of Marilyn Munster in Munster Go Home. So you got your Kevin Bacon 6 Degrees of Separation going. The Munsters itself was a very cool show. We had tons of great people, comedians, writers, special effects people, makeup people. George Barris, the shirt. I have Munster Coach and Dragula with me. I do a lot of automotive events, which is actually my comfort zone because I buy and sell cars, and I'm a gearhead, muscle cars primarily. But the Munsters fits into a lot of interesting categories. I can do things all the way from horror sci-fi to toys and collectibles to even tattoo conventions. I've been over to Liverpool and I'm going to Germany because there's so many people that have had Munsters inked on them that if you're at a tattoo convention, people love the Munsters. So that's a good fit. I mean, that's extraordinary. So I can go about 5 or 6 different categories and never get tired.
Makes sense. Do you have a question? So we can trade up, kind of trade off.
That's fine. First, we appreciate you coming. Thanks for being here. We had spoken on the phone. I'm Jimmy from the newspaper in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good to see you.
And I've got your panel on Sunday. I'm your moderator.
Very good.
But the one message that you like to get across to people when you speak publicly or at a panel or anything else, what's a message you like to get across to people?
Well, I would suppose that always just your basic common sense is, I try to have a positive approach, half full as opposed to half empty. I try to be golden rule, real basic stuff. Old family values from the 60s seem to instill a lot of people are watching these old channels for a reason, because television has a tendency to mirror society, for what it is. And society right now is not so good. So everybody looks back on the 60s and the family values and the dinner hour of the Donna Reed and Leave It to Beaver and the Munsters and just, even Bewitched and Genie and stuff. Those are all great shows that entertain you, but they're all wholesome. And they don't rely on nudity or profanity or violence or any of that stuff to entertain you. I mean, Andy Mayberry is one of the most popular shows ever. So Andy Mayberry does really well as well. So anyway, people really gravitate towards that stuff, which is why pop culture cons do so well, because people enjoy that. And the 60s, it bleeds over a little bit into the 70s, but really the 60s is a pop culture decade.
I get you.
And the Munsters were right in the middle of it.
Do you have any charities that you're affiliated with that you maybe want to talk about on camera?
Charities?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm a cancer survivor, but literally I always worked with Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I just met the guy at a speaking engagement in San Diego about a month ago who actually started Make-A-Wish. And he's a great guy. It's Frank. He's got a weird last name. Frank Stanwich. Anyway, Frank, he started the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He was a highway patrol officer, died at the scene of a crime, was brought back to life, had a vision, and he took a young kid that had leukemia that died 3 days later after riding on a motorcycle. And after he did that for this kid, he thought, wow, he goes, maybe this is my calling. We could do this for other people. 30 years later, 455,000 wishes granted.
That is awesome.
It's an amazing story. He's a hell of a nice guy. So Frank Shankwitz. So that was like right now. That's my favorite. Make-A-Wish is my favorite charity. I worked for the Surf Rider. I worked with Louise Harrison, George's older sister. She was doing environmental stuff. But right now, I'm gonna make it simple and stay with Make-A-Wish.
Yes, sir.
I'm good if you are.
Yeah, I actually have one other side
Sure.
question, which is in today's film, you know, in doing the monsters as you have in today's film genre, do you have any new advice that you'd offer any new filmmakers that are just now coming into the craft itself?
Well, you know, obviously try to do, you know, I would say the young filmmakers, they don't have a lot of life experience. Hey, Felix, they don't have a lot of, speaking of experience, look at this guy. I've known him longer than anybody in Hollywood. He was my stunt double on My Favorite Martian.
I know you.
And we became friends.
I know you.
Still know him.
Huh?
56, 58 years now. Do what you love, do it for the right reasons, don't try to make $1 million, and speak from your heart, I guess. And try to do something different. Don't try to do the Munsters for the 18th time, please.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you very
You
much.
got it, no worries.
Yes, sir.